What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Saturday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked into TV 14.1 in Delmarva, and of course, the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. Follow me on social media, Twitter, IG at Rich Q on Q. So, a lot of NFL news and notes to dive into. Selection Sunday right around the corner, as well. Some NBA good nuggets on this Saturday. We're going to go NFL heavy. We'll talk some futures and some odds as well when it comes to the NFL. So still, figuring out what's going to transpire with these big reports coming down. And maybe by the time we're airing this on this Saturday, the Jets might have found their quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. And I want to dive into that a little bit. And then I certainly, for the Baltimore Ravens fans, I want to get into this Lamar Jackson situation because I know what Lamar Jackson means to the Baltimore Ravens. And we know we have this displaced type of fan base up and down 95. So we want to dive into that today. But the latest with Aaron Rodgers, a compensation package was already in place for Aaron Rodgers to become the new quarterback of the New York Jets. It does appear that Green Bay is ready to move on from him. Now, I made the point of saying earlier in the week on BYP, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you probably want to stay in the NFC. Why would you want to go to the AFC where you have to contend with Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City, defending Super Bowl champs? You've got an upstart Jacksonville team, Miami's on the rise, and the like. And if you're Green Bay, you probably think, let's kind of, to figure out a way to make this work. You got 60-something on million on the table with Aaron Rodgers, and you can easily win that division year in and year out. Detroit's getting a little better. Chicago still stinks. They're perhaps thinking about getting a quarterback. And then you have Minnesota that we're still not entirely sold on that franchise. With Kirk Cousins, they lost at home in the playoffs to the New York Giants. So I think there's a lot of, I guess we'll say, variables involved when it comes to quarterback play. Aaron Rodgers, his contract that was restructured, he got 101 million guaranteed. Russell Wilson, 124 million guaranteed. Kyler Murray, which is another animal we'll talk about, another issue, a $103. Watson, the only quarterback, 230 million guaranteed. That's just the life of his contract. That's kind of the rub with Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, then Allen. We'll get into Daniel Jones's new deal with the Giants in a moment for the Giants fans out there. But my contention is that if you're the Jets, I'm a little surprised you're putting all your eggs in an Aaron Rodgers basket. And the reason I say that is because he's lost a little bit on the fastball. He's had a penchant for calling out his teammates over the last several years. He hasn't been able to win big games. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I've argued and debated with people for so many years, is he really clutch? I mean, you had an opportunity to beat the Detroit Lions to get into the playoffs and, quote, do some damage because every team was afraid to see you. You don't want the Packers to get in. And he spit the bit and barely cracked 200 yards and had a poor performance against Detroit. He's not the same quarterback he once was. I think Jet fans are looking at Aaron Rodgers 2011, 12, 13. Now, a couple of years ago, he had a good season, but Aaron Rodgers this past NFL season did not play particularly well, got nicked up, banged up with the hand injury he suffered in London against the Giants. If you want to say that attributed to some of his inconsistent play, so be it. But the numbers were down, 25, 26 touchdowns, 11, 12 interceptions, which is very rare for Aaron Rodgers. I think he leaves a lot to be desired at this point of his career. Now, if you're the Jets, you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you get instant credibility. You've got an all-time great, a Hall of Famer, New York, big market. You're on prime time. I get it. You're moving the needle. But for 1 year, right? For 1 year. I mean, heck, the Rams turned around and did it with Stafford and then paid the price because Stafford looks like he's old, shot, injured quarterback. It's one of the reasons they brought in Mayfield as a backup. But they got their one Super Bowl. Okay. And I'm sure Jet fans would say, just give me one, right? You saw 69, Joe Namath, 16-7 over the Colts, fine. The Jets have not had stability at the quarterback position for so long aside from a flicker of moments with the Penningtons and the Mark Sanchez. Other than that, it's been a revolving door. You go back to the 80s and the Todds and the Ken O'Brien. But, you can kind of mix and match all the quarterbacks that we've documented and illustrated and highlighted. I just don't know if Aaron Rodgers at this stage of his career instantly makes the Jets a Super Bowl contender. Whereas I believe you get a younger, I think a change of scenery ready for a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And that makes you a big time animal, not only the division, but also you're keeping him in the conference. He's familiar with the AFC. So I was thinking about this, right? When you look at some of these other contracts, like Daniel Jones, a contract that he signed with the Giants, $160, which is right around where we thought it was going to be, $82 million at signing, 35 in incentives. Daniel Jones, people were arguing, was not a $40-45 million contract quarterback, but the way the quarterback position is in the NFL, you have to basically look at the money and take a step back, right? It's not 160, boom. Okay. When you got 35 million in incentives, 82 million guaranteed over 2 years, when you've got 94 or 85 in a signing bonus, when you can get it out in 2 seasons and out in 3 seasons, you have to take that all in consideration. The Giants can get it out in 2 years if they're not satisfied with Daniel Jones. They tagged Barkley because they realize he's also the primary weapon on that offense. It's a good contract when you really dive into the details. I'm under no disillusions by saying Daniel Jones is not a top 10 quarterback right now. He's not. If you want to say top 15, fine. But he played at times like he was a top 10 quarterback. The Giants are paying him because they believe he's going to be that top tier quarterback when surrounded with some weapons. You trade Tony, you get nothing out of Golladay for $72 million. Robinson goes down, Shepard goes down. You got to toss out some of these wide receivers. And I believe that when John Mara came out and said, we haven't done this kid right, we've done everything to screw him up. Daniel Jones had the cards, he had the leverage, he had bullets in the chamber. He deserves that payday. He played well. He was efficient, completion percentage up, turnovers down. You balk and gawk at the 15 touchdowns thrown, but he added 7 on the ground. That's 22, over 4,000 total yards, 700 rushing. Ideally, I'd rather see Daniel Jones throw 25 touchdowns to 28 touchdowns this year, 3,800 yards, 400 yards rushing, and 5 touchdowns on the ground. I'm happy with that. But he went on the road and won a playoff game, and that's what you look for, right? It's tough to win playoff games. So the reason I bring this up is because the Jets, they're not going to have that when Aaron Rodgers, not at this stage in their career. They can have it with Lamar Jackson. And for the Ravens to come out and slap that tag on him, right? If you offer the exclusive tag instead with that, the non-exclusive where if you want to talk to Lamar Jackson, you can. And if you want to make a trade for Lamar Jackson, start talking to me when you bring up 2 first-round draft picks. Then with this exclusive tag, instead, it's saying, we will want you in the mix. We want you in the fold. That's not the case now for Lamar Jackson. Those are not the options. And I find it pretty hard to believe that it gets leaked out that Washington, Miami, Atlanta, who already went on the record and said, we won't talk to him until after the draft, and Carolina have already come out and said they're not interested in Lamar Jackson. Now, I get it, but if you're the Jets, why not make that call, right? Are you scared off by the fact that Lamar Jackson wants Deshaun Watson money, right? $320 million. He's not going to get it. That was a stupid move by Haslam with the Cleveland Browns that drew the ire of 31 other franchise owners. It was a stupid contract to give Deshaun Watson. Lamar Jackson is much better than Deshaun Watson. The year that Lamar Jackson won the MVP, Lamar Jackson threw for 35 touchdown passes. So Lamar Jackson is a player, man. If you're a little worried about the health concerns and missing a couple games, I totally understand that, the injury prone, but he's substantially younger than Aaron Rodgers. He's younger than the Derek Carrs of the world who just signed with the New Orleans Saints. And Lamar Jackson is a player. So again, the non-exclusive tag locks you into a salary of about $32.4 million in 2023 if you return then you want that long-term deal at 230, which Deshaun Watson got. I don't believe it's going to be the case, but I think what we've seen now is the fact that by slapping this, your owners are telling quarterbacks no more of this notion you are going to get $320 million. You're not going to get a fully guaranteed contract. Nowhere is it written. It's never going to happen. But I still believe he's more athletic than Rodgers. He's got the bigger upside than Rodgers. If you're scared because of his size and the way he plays like a Cam Newton or an Allen, okay, fine. But you also get him for multiple seasons. Aaron Rodgers, I believe this might be a one and done with the New York Jets. And I think he's lost a little bit on the fastball. And I have concerns too in Aaron Rodgers, where he's at mentally. Are you all in? Or if the Jets go 1-4 to start the season and Aaron Rodgers is struggling, throws a couple picks, they lose a bad game to New England 28-13, he gets booed, and then he's got to answer the media, which they're going to fire off questions, that New York media. Does he have the thick skin for it? And that's yet to be seen, man. And, he's also going to probably want to bring over some of his players. Now, they released the Jets did Braxton Berrios, kick returner, wide receiver. You want to free up some space. They made some minor trades as well, which I retweeted on Twitter at Rich Quinones. But the quarterback carousel in the NFL, it's crazy. Look what Derek Carr just did, right? And Daniel Jones it's a very good deal because it's $12 million more than Carr. Carr goes to New Orleans, automatically is the best quarterback in that division. There's a rumor that Atlanta might be looking at Lamar Jackson. So I just find it interesting that you might argue collusion here and there. Why are these teams coming out already? And they're basically saying they don't want to touch this guy. And I get the allure, what Aaron Rodgers would mean to a Jet franchise, but it still reminds me of 2008 when the Jets basically forced the hand of Green Bay to trade him, and he went to the Jets, and they were 3-3, then 8-3. Then he got hurt, and then the line broke down. Then he played poorly. They didn't make the playoffs, and he was one and done with the Jets. And you had to have that setback of a couple of years to find another quarterback. So that's something you really have to keep into consideration. I got a lot of tweets asking me about Daniel Jones and Saquon, and the fact that they tagged Saquon right around 10 million. They were going to do that because there's no way you bring Jones back and not Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is not a $15 million a year running back. He's not high end, 12.5 to 13. I would say, 339, 442-ish, 43-ish. I would be okay with that for Saquon. He's coming off a great season, but he also has shown he's injury prone in the past. So are you paying him for what he did his rookie year, what he did this past season, or what you believe he's going to do? We know the life expectancy of running backs. You had to bring him back. They made it work. He might not be happy with it, but I like what Joe Shane has done, because he's decided, hey, if it was up to me, I would have declined Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. And this is also what happens when you draft a running back and a quarterback so high in back-to-back drafts. That's something also that no one ever wants to talk about, right? But the Giants got the deal done. Saints got the deal done. San Francisco is going to look for a quarterback. Washington, Miami, they can tell you they're sold on Tua. I'm not entirely convinced because of the concussions. Atlanta, Carolina, Indianapolis might be a team at 4. Or do they trade down with the Bears to get the number 1 overall pick? Arizona. So Indianapolis is sitting there, and they're wondering as well, we need a quarterback, right? So do they take a flyer on Lamar Jackson? It's yet to be seen how it's going to play out. But if Rodgers goes to the Jets, does he make them Super Bowl contenders? No. Does he make them a viable option in the AFC, at least to contend in the AFC? Yes, but you still got to get through the Buffalo Bills. You have to get through Kansas City and Cincinnati in that conference, and potentially a upstart Jacksonville squad. So those are things to consider. All right, midway through already. Time goes fast. A Saturday edition of BYP right here on TV 14.1 in Delmarva. Rich Quinones here at Rich Q on Q, IG, Twitter. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll get into a little college hoop selection. Sunday is mañana, tomorrow. We'll give you some big news that transpired over the last several days in college basketball and also college football, where interesting little tidbit coming out now with a player whose stock has really dropped exponentially. So we'll talk about that as well on the other side. Keep it locked into a Saturday edition of BYP.